Welcome back to Global Education Zone, and in this particular episode of our course for further mathematics for SS3, we are going to be dealing with a concept which is something you probably must have heard about in the previous episode, and that is inequalities. So I did a video on inequalities in the previous video episode for SS2, right? I did a video on inequalities. Now today we are going to be taking it a step ahead of that. So we are going to be talking about things I did not talk about in the previous episode, and that is concepts involving multiplications and inequalities and quotients. So let's deal with something like that. So basically, first of all, we have an equation here. We have to solve an inequality, and this is the inequality we have to solve. 2x squared minus 5x minus plus 2 is lesser than or equal to 0. So in this case, we are told that 2x squared minus 5x plus 2 is lesser than or equal to 0. So in this case, I want you to calmly look at this question. Now it's very simple, but it depends on how you approach it. Now first of all, you need to solve this as if it is an equality. Now I told you that the only difference between an equation and an inequality is the fact that an equation and an inequality, the only difference is the sign. But in terms of algebraic and processes of calculations, they are just the same. So in this case, we are going to factorize this one. So just do it like this. So look for two factors. We multiply the first and last term, and look for two factors whose products will give us the multiplication of the first and last term, and whose sum will give us the middle term. So in this case, by trial and error, we have it as 2x squared. So those terms will be minus 4 and minus 1. So 2x squared minus 4x minus x plus 2 lesser than or equal to 0. So in this case, we'll have factorizing the first two. So we have 2x is common. 2x x minus 2. Then minus, so we have minus 1, that will be x minus 2 lesser than or equal to 0. So at the end of the day, we have 2x minus 1 x minus 2 lesser than or equal to 0. So now we have it as, it's kind of like we have factorized it now, and we have 2x minus 1 x minus 2 is lesser than or equal to 0. So in this case, I want us to take it slowly and understand the concept. Now we are going to analyze it into two parts. Now, what we have lesser than or equal to 0, for something to be lesser than something, so that means if the product of this is lesser than 0, that means the product of this is negative. Now, for something to be negative, that means it must have at least a negative number. That means if at least this 2x minus 1, this 2x minus 1, one of it, at least one of it must be negative. And okay, yes, let's say only one of it must be negative. One must be negative. That means these ones, they will have different signs. So that means either this 2x minus 1 is lesser than 0, or x minus 2 is greater than or equal to 0, or 2x minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0, or x minus 2 is lesser than or equal to 0. So in this case, these are the two different cases we can get from this kind of equations. So now when we solve them graphically, we have 2x minus 1, 2x is lesser than or equal to 1, 2x or x is greater than or equals to 2. Then we have 2x greater than or equals to 1, or x lesser than or equals to 2. So now the reason for that is that for something to be less, it has to, at least one of it has to be lesser than 1, but not 2. So only one must be lesser than 1. So we don't know which one is lesser than 1. One must be lesser than 1, one must be greater than 0 rather. So I'll try to say 0, not 1. So one must be greater than 0, one must be lesser than 0, but we don't know which one. So now it's time to pick. Now we are going to pick the extremes of this equation. So for each of these, let's pick the extreme positive. So if 2x is lesser than or equals to 1, that means x is lesser than or equals to half. So x is lesser than or equals to 1 over 2, or x is greater than or equals to 2. Then we also have x is greater than or equals to 1 over 2, or x is lesser than or equals to 2. So now, which of these ones correspond to the we satisfy the equation? So now we have x is lesser than or equals to 1 over 2, or x is greater than or equals to 2. So if when x is lesser than or equals to 1 over 2, that means x is greater than or equals to 2, right? No, that's not what it means. So we'll pick x is greater than or equals to 1 over 2, or x is lesser than 2. So this one makes more sense because it's more it makes more sense to us, because how will x be lesser than or equals to 1 over 2 and at the same time greater than or equals to 2? So we'll pick the second one because it makes more sense. So that means we'll represent it as 1 over 2 lesser than or equals to x lesser than or equals to 2. If we were to represent that on the number line, that would be from here 0, 1, 2. That's 1 over 2, that's half to 2. So this is the representation on the number line. And graphically, we'll talk about that graphically in next episode. Thanks for watching.